At Trinity United Church, our usual tradition is to choose a theme that we follow through Lent. And this year we chose Rehearsing for Resurrection. Over the past few weeks, we have talked about practicing awareness and lament, imagination, and taking action to deepen or enhance our spiritual life. This week, our scheduled theme invites us to practice encouragement. I could never have imagined how appropriate and at the same time what a challenge this theme would offer the week of March 29th, 2020. I say appropriate because, well, a lot of us are feeling discouraged at the moment. How can we not? The world is basically shut down, held hostage by a submicroscopic infectious agent called COVID-19. We don't know how long this will last. We don't know how many people will get sick and die. And we're all just doing the best we can to manage in this new world. Many of us are feeling stress and tension for lots of the same reasons and lots of different reasons. But I think we could all use a little encouragement. But how can we practice encouragement in such a world? This is the challenge. When we are in such stressful and discouraging times, where do we possibly find this encouragement? And how do we encourage others when handshakes and hugs and visits over coffee and all the ways we usually use to lift others up are impossible as we separate ourselves physically from one another? I noticed that as I've been thinking about these things, I've been drawn back to biblical stories of the early Christian church. It's in stories like these that we also find communities and individuals struggling with change and conflict and new ways of being. Indeed, we have several books of the Bible which are letters of encouragement, written from leaders of the new church like Paul to small and isolated groups of new Christians in Corinth or Thessalonica or Ephesus. And one of the leaders at that time was a man named Joseph. No, not that Joseph. No, not that Joseph either. No, not Joseph of Arimathea. This Joseph was given a new name by the apostles. They called him Barnabas. Have you heard of Barnabas? He's certainly not the most famous leader of the early Christian church, but he was so appreciated by the other apostles that they gave him this name that means son of encouragement. So I thought we might explore his story a little more to discover what prompted the apostles to give him such a name and what insight that might offer us as we attempt to encourage one another right now. So Barnabas is first mentioned as someone who had a piece of land that he sold and donated all the proceeds to the apostles in Jerusalem. Certainly acts of generosity, especially unexpected ones that fill a need, are encouraging, aren't they? I know how I have felt when we've received notice of a bequest to this church. That someone felt that what we do together is important enough to give us a gift of financial support in that way feels like a huge act of faith in what we do and what we're about, which gives a lift to everyone who's a part of that. And I can think of a couple of times in my personal life when I've been the recipient of an act of generosity that has boosted my energy and my spirits, even my confidence, in a way I didn't expect. Perhaps you have too. In these tense times when we're being asked to protect ourselves and our safety, when people are being laid off, when programs are being shut down, generosity can be in short supply. The ability to be generous may feel like it's a little further out of reach than usual. But maybe that's why we need to practice it. And right now, figuring out how to be generous will maybe take some practice, because we don't have easy access to our usual resources and methods of giving. But that doesn't mean that generosity is off the table for us. Like, set aside for a minute your concerns about what you don't have right now. What do you have enough of right now? Maybe even more than enough? And is there a way you could share that? It might be that what you have lots of right now is space or time rather than money. And if that's the case, I wonder if you could offer encouragement by writing a letter, sending a card, making a phone call. Examples of this kind of generosity are starting to appear around us, like the messages that have appeared outside grocery stores in chalk, saying, "Thanks for all your hard work, grocery store clerks, shelf stockers, cleaners." Like the store managers who are relaying supportive comments or words they've received over the store intercoms for inspiration for their teams. Like the artists and the musicians who are offering free concerts and tutorials by computer that people can participate in from home. And if you have extra money or food, even a can of soup or a package of macaroni is a welcome drop-off to the food bank, the Friendship Center, or the free pantry cupboard here in town. But let's return back to Barnabas for a minute, because there's more to discover about encouragement there. It turns out that the way Barnabas offered encouragement was not only or even primarily through his financial generosity. Consider his relationship to Paul. When we first encounter Paul in the Bible, his name is Saul, and he is not a fan of the Jesus movement. In fact, he was part of those who were trying to take them down. In Acts 8, we read, "Saul began to destroy the church. Going from house to house, he dragged off both men and women and put them in prison." But then, on the road to Damascus, he has a great conversion moment and begins to proclaim the stories of Jesus. Well, as you can imagine, when he tries to join the disciples in Jerusalem, given their experience, they're more than skeptical of his intentions. And it is Barnabas who comes forward and vouches for Paul. Seeing potential in him, Barnabas asks the apostles to risk giving him a chance. And without Barnabas opening that door for Paul, the story of the Christian church would have been very different indeed. Barnabas continued to open doors for Paul. Barnabas was chosen to oversee the new movement over in Antioch. He developed this thriving community there. And as he considered who might help and who he might bring into leadership, he thought of Paul, who'd been sent in another direction for safety because he'd been getting into trouble in Jerusalem. So Barnabas brought him to Antioch, and together they spent a year leading the community there. And after that, the two of them were commissioned to travel to various other locations. And it's interesting to me that at the beginning of their time together, the Bible storytellers refer to Barnabas and Saul. And then, almost unconsciously, it seems, the stories become about Paul and Barnabas. It's as if Barnabas has quietly shifted into the background, while Paul has taken over the limelight, the ideal place for him to fulfill his calling with his passion. But this is often the role of the encourager, isn't it? To give you support when you need it, to have your back, but then to help you find space, to grow into who you can be, to instill confidence in you so that you can fulfill your potential and your calling. Who is it in your life who has inspired you to do something challenging, Who has stood beside you and supported you when others weren't quite so sure? Who has empowered you to build your confidence, to offer your gifts and skills in a way you weren't even sure you could? That's what we see in Barnabas. He does this for Paul, but he does it for the whole of the new Christian church. There's something in Barnabas that quietly sees what others can't yet, that is open to listening and learning in new ways, but is still deeply committed and instills trust in those around. He and Paul are asked to come to the Council of Jerusalem, for example, to provide evidence that the new Gentile converts were worthy of full membership into the church without becoming Jewish, which he does. And because the apostles trust Barnabas' judgment, the church grows. There's another person who benefits significantly from Barnabas' encouragement. He's a young relative of Barnabas. Some translations say cousin, some say nephew. John Mark, sometimes called John and sometimes called Mark. Never mind. Barnabas brings John Mark along on their first missionary voyage from Antioch, but he gets homesick and doesn't stay with them long. And sometime years later, when Paul invites Barnabas on another journey, Barnabas asks to bring John Mark along. And Paul says no. Having left them once, Paul is not willing to give John Mark a second chance. He doesn't trust him. A bit ironic coming from the former Christian persecutor. But Barnabas, true to character, sees a potential in John Mark and is not willing to give up on him. To the point that Barnabas and Paul decide to go their separate ways. I think it's telling that while we do not hear much of Barnabas again, Paul's second letter to Timothy, written from prison, facing execution, lists a few final requests. And one of them is to get Mark and bring him with you because he's so helpful to my ministry. We don't hear the full story, but it is clear that with the encouragement of Barnabas, John Mark also has found his place and his way. And somehow I think Barnabas' encouragement is still with both of them. Well, this week, with the example of Barnabas before us, we are invited to practice encouragement. And it occurs to me that what Barnabas knew was that people needed a little help, a little support, to present their best selves to the world, particularly in challenging times. People needed to be given more than one chance to find their way. And in these stressful days, we can all use that kind of grace and encouragement. Some among us are instinctively good at this. They're like Barnabas, who can see beyond our behavior of the moment to who and what we can be, and what we need to be our best selves. And so to them, I say thank you. We need you to keep doing it and teach us how to do it better. Because lots of us are more like Paul. And in times of tension and fear, we can be pretty self-centered. So we may not be particularly good at taking the time to notice what kind of support or confidence would give someone else a lift, especially if it's different from what we ourselves need. Or we're not used to asking for help, or even know we need help, or what to ask for from someone else. But that is what practicing is for. We don't have to be good at it right away. We don't need to be mind readers. We can ask what might help. And in these times, I think that people appreciate even the effort. A supportive or encouraging gesture is a really good start. Most of us just need a listening ear, someone to notice how hard we've been trying, the effort we're putting in, to give us the confidence to carry on. So let us remember that as a human family, we are in this thing together. Let us encourage and be encouraged as best we can. Would you pray with me? Source of wisdom and love, bring us encouragement this day. Sustain us when we feel like we're at our wits' end. In these uncertain times, may each of us in our own ways discover that we have the ability to encourage another, to build each other up in a world that tries to tear us down and apart. May we love our neighbors the best way we can. Amen. Well, let me end this video message with some words from the first letter of encouragement written to the Thessalonians in chapter 5, as found in the Message translation. So, speak encouraging words to one another. Build up hope so you'll all be together in this, no one left out, no one left behind. I know you're already doing this. Just keep on doing it. Keep on indeed. Amen.